Yeah. If I cough more, thing is, I'm going to become more self-conscious as I cough.
You need to watch Apollo 13 is what you need to watch, and that'll tell you how.
Yeah, hopefully the new air filter and the closed door will keep me from becoming overly poisoned by the mold that is now.
Yeah, no,
in
it's
my
fine.
house.
It's fine.
Yeah.
You know, we just in our barracks, we just didn't think about it, and we said, you know, that black stuff on the wall that's growing in line of sight of anyone who comes and does an inspection, that's it's making us harder.
The mold inspector actually told me that because he wasn't wearing a mask in the house. I was like, how do you do it? And he's like, I just work out a lot and sweat. He's like, sweat gets the mold out of your system. And I was like, there's actually probably something to that, because I remember in biology studying that 10% of your excretion happens through your sweat. It's like it's why you stink when you sweat. It's because your body's expelling things, and which would also explain why I'm less sick than the rest of my family.
That's why pain
I've been working
stinks.
out really hard. Yeah, so like all you Marines in a moldy barracks.
Yeah, it's weakness leaving the body.
You go into the barracks,
we're fine.
Breathe in all the mold, and then go out and do your PT.
The mold's like, why won't they die?
Why are they so angry? Anyway.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'll try. I got my hand near the mute button. We're getting the official mold report, hopefully. This evening.
Official mold report.
Yeah, and so if it's as bad as it's likely to be, I'll start moving my studio more officially. One of the
just remember, in Roman times, Thomas, they worshipped mold or something.
I was explaining to my daughter, I was like, you know, there's a mold protocol in the Bible for what you're supposed to do if there's mold in your house. And I was like, you remove the mold, and if it comes back too many times, you remove it. And eventually, if you can't get rid of the house, you burn down the house. And she's like,
yeah, that's right.
Are we going to have to burn down our house?
Yes.
I was like, no, we'll just keep working till the mold removed. Oh,
with
yikes.
all your toys.
Welcome to Author Update, publishing news that actually matters to your career and cultural zeitgeist analysis you can't find anywhere else. We guarantee it.
Nowhere else. This week, BookFunnel launched a feature that lets you bundle things into your ebook, and it's something Amazon just cannot match. KDP's global fund has grown 11% in April, while traditional publishing went negative in real terms after inflation. A Harper's Bazaar literary prize goes to an entry that scores 100% AI on a leading detector. Kobo blocked 45% of all submissions to stop the AI book flood. Apple hiked Mac prices up $300 more because of chip shortages and Taiwan war games. And the Pope has something to say to every author with an unfinished manuscript, including you, George R.R. Martin. Here we go.
No, it's not for George R.R. Martin. I think the Pope is happy if he doesn't finish this book. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you want to know when we go live. It's 4 p.m. on Fridays, Central Time, or just ring the bell. You have to like to ring the bell, but you have to subscribe to ring the bell. You don't have to like. I know that we're your favorite hate listen, and we appreciate your watch minutes just as much as the people who actually enjoy being here. And with that, let's go to some publishing news. Jonathan?
So, BookFunnel's new tools let authors bundle bonuses that Amazon just can't match. Now, with BookFunnel, you can bundle multimedia uploads. This will totally transform direct sales, because now what you can do is you can attach PDFs or downloads or additional ebooks every time somebody buys your book. The new multimedia uploads feature lets authors deliver almost any digital file, up to 300 megabytes, through BookFunnel's existing delivery system. Readers will receive everything at once and access it from their BookFunnel library. This creates a clear value gap. The Amazon edition only contains the core text, so the ebook. The direct edition can contain the core text plus the extras that make the world or the teaching come alive. So say you're running a Kickstarter and you want to deliver your digital goods. Well, people order through, when they get their BookFunnel, they can get the multimedia link, which will allow them to download all of their stuff in one easy click. Or if you're selling direct from your web store. from Shopify or through PayHip, which is what we've been talking about the last couple of weeks, you can also deliver the extras and the fun goodies that go along with your book that make it a much more special experience to order direct.
And it's all in one purchase. So you've always
Yes.
been able to sell like a companion product through your website, but the delivery has been complicated and difficult. Now BookFunnel delivers it all in the same place. And this is really cool. They also added a bunch of integrations. So they connect with Wix and a bunch of basically all of the stores you'd want to use. They connect with, although I don't think they connect with the new Book Vault store.
Well, probably not yet, but they will.
Yeah, although you don't really need it to, because Book Vault is for delivering the physical book and BookFunnel is for delivering the ebook. And there are ways of creating like super bundles that have the paper and the ebook. But to give you some idea, I generated a list of potential ideas to kind of get the gears turning for things you could do here. So it's stuff like a world map or a character art gallery or a character Bible, cut scenes or deleted scenes, alternate endings, a timeline.
Never throw away anything is basically what we're saying, because you could bundle it together for stuff. And that's do you remember the DVD extras that we used to be able to get before streaming took over? There was the Lord of the Rings extended edition behind the scenes are still the best behind the scenes options there ever were.
And I will say I created a bunch of tools in the Patreon toolbox to help create these exact sorts of things for fiction. So it's a bunch of compendium tools. My tools create a character compendium, a flora and fauna compendium, which is not very popular except for the people that it is popular with. They love it, because if you have a strange alien world, keeping track of the plants and animals is really useful. A factions compendium, a locations compendium. I created a glossary builder and a map maker. The map maker doesn't work very well. Don't pay for the toolbox just for the map maker. But if you have the toolbox, you're welcome to play with the map maker. I would say the map maker is in toy mode more than like deployment mode like the other tools are. But like a recipe collection, any sort of encyclopedia, coloring pages, a lot of the kind of bonus material we've talked about putting on your book page, you now could include some or all of that in the book itself as a companion. But that is kind of small potatoes compared to what you can do in nonfiction world. So historically, nonfiction ebooks struggled to sell because the physical book experience is superior. Being able to read chapter 1 and then jumping forward to chapter 7, being able to dog ear pages, being able to underline and highlight, all of that makes nonfiction readers prefer paper books. But if you're using this new BookFunnel feature, you could include printable workbooks, an implementation tracker, templates. It's like you create a bunch of spreadsheet templates to help them with whatever it is you're teaching them how to do, checklist printables, reference guides, swipe files. Basically, anything that you're teaching your reader how to do, you can give them assets to help them do that thing that then they get and can print. Discussion guides, which actually you could put for both fiction and nonfiction, action plan templates. Anyway, I have a bunch more ideas in this. You can brainstorm on your own. The key is don't do it everything and adapt it for your reader in your book. But this solves the why should someone buy direct from me when buying from Amazon is so cheap and easy? And the answer is Amazon doesn't give you as cool of a final product as what they can get buying from you direct, where your version comes with all these cool add-ons. And what you could do is sell just those add-ons for $5 or $6 that the Amazon people can buy. Yeah. And then it was like, wait, but if you buy from me, you get that $6 bonus included for free. And now your $5 ebook feels like a bargain compared to paying $5 on Amazon plus another $6 for the bonuses.
I don't know. It kind of overlooked one of the major ones for me, which is in fantasy, people want the artwork. You know, people want, so create a screen, what is it called? Screen background? Create a phone skin. And so that way, when people order the ebook, they're also getting art that goes along with it that you can put onto their phone home screen, and suddenly they're advertising your book for you.
Yeah.
Because it looks cool and they love reading the book. And man, if everyone started doing this, people could be switching out their phone backdrops just for every book that they're currently reading.
And it becomes an advertisement. Somebody's like, oh, what is that home screen? You're like, oh, it's this cool new book I'm reading. Holyoke, thank you for the super chat. He asks, how do you imagine Amazon might respond? I'll tell you exactly how Amazon.
They're not going to do a thing.
They're not going to do anything.
They don't.
They
own everything.
Yeah, they should respond by expanding the delivery where Amazon authors can bundle more things. They've done this a little bit over on Audible, where Audible now allows for a companion PDF, I believe, but it's just a single document.
You can listen along. You can read along in your ebook with the audiobook you're listening to.
Yeah,
I think, if you own both.
They have but you have to pay for both. They also
you have to have both.
Discount for both. Yeah. BookFunnel would need a lot more market share and would need to put a lot more pay into Amazon. Until they do that, this is a arbitrage opportunity for those of you selling direct. And I know I'm famous for being down on selling direct, and I still am. I'm going to put my disclaimer. If your problem is no one knows who you are, selling direct just gives you another problem, which is now managing your own store. It doesn't solve the people knowing who you are. But if you're already popular, selling direct can help you increase your revenue and now make your ebook much more appealing, which is key because a lot of people who sell direct are selling audiobooks and paper books or special editions or signed editions. And now that really high margin ebook, because your ebook could be as high margin as like 90%, 95%. You're going to have to pay some credit card fees. You're going to have to pay BookFunnel for their monthly fee. So you'll have to amortize that. So it's not 100%, but it's about as close to 100% as you can get for anything is selling an ebook online. You just got to find a way to make it appealing.
Elaine, what you're going to do is instead of trying to use this, because you have the 300 megabyte ceiling that you're dealing with on this, I think what you're going to want to...
BookFunnel does support audiobooks, and they have a whole audiobook.
Yes, I'm getting there. Okay, but what you're going to do is when you create your delivery action for when somebody buys whatever product it is you're bundling, you'll create your delivery action to just include delivering the audio as well. So if you're going to give them a soundtrack, you're going to give them a little audiobook or something like that, you can totally do that through BookFunnel, but that's the way you'll do it. You'll not use the bundling thing here.
Yeah. You can do videos up to 300 megabytes. 300 megabytes isn't a lot of megabytes for a video. So this is like a short tutorial type video. And I encourage you to check it. I actually have an interview scheduled with Damien, the CEO of BookFunnel, for novel marketing. And if y'all have any questions you want me to ask him, send them to me. The interview is currently scheduled for 4 days before the due date for the new baby. So that interview may or may not happen. when he picked the time, I was just like, heads up, you're in the baby landing zone.
Speaking of delivery,
you think delivering an ebook is hard? Try delivering a human baby. It's way harder.
Oh no, it bundled. Oh no.
Surprise, it's twins. So one other real quick feature that they added, backer kit integration has now been added, which really makes BookFunnel the kind of automatic option if you're doing crowdfunding. Backer kit's becoming a competitor to Kickstarter. I'm not going to go into that too much, but if you know, this is a nice feature. But let's move on to AI has just potentially, and we don't want to libel anyone or slander anyone here because maybe the humans wrote it, but according to the AI checkers, the winner of a literary award may just have been a human using a machine. Jonathan?
According to a June 20th post by writer Nobel S. Qureshi on X, another apparently AI-generated story won a literary prize judged by a panel that included novelist Ruth Ozeki. Qureshi highlighted the result and called for prizes to add pangram checks or update rules to address AI writing openly. Harper's Bazaar UK published the winning story on June 18th, 2026. The competition ran under the theme, The Conversation. Kavita K won for Back and Forth. She receives a 2-night stay at Devonsburg Island Hotel. The magazine published the full story along with runners-up entries.
So I will say with all of these stories about AI winning awards or some books supposedly being written by AI, Pangram is not nearly as accurate as it claims. It claims to be 99.98% accurate. And the nerdy novelist... the nerdy novelist just did some tests on Pangram, and it's not nearly as reliable as it claims to be. And a lot of these tools are, and Pangram in particular, is overly sensitive, where you can get it to flag either way higher for AI than it really was written by AI, or totally off base. And this is where the easiest money in this industry is to write in the style of AI, but not with AI, with receipts, and then sue people who claim that you
Amen.
wrote with AI. That's
Litigation.
that's some of the easiest money. So we're not saying that this was written by AI. We're saying that somebody else said that it was written on AI. We're just
And
reporting.
it's strangely someone who hasn't won.
And it was somebody else who lost the award. I suspect long term people are going to stop caring. Like people, like I was listening to my Spotify, one of the playlists, which is the like For You playlist, where it just like gives you songs in the style of previous songs that you liked. And I was listening to this Christian song I never heard before, and I was enjoying it. And part of me was like, I wonder if this is AI. And I was like, I don't care. I just want to enjoy this song.
Yeah, I like the song. Like,
and I want to be able to enjoy this song without having to wonder if it's AI or not. And so I'm like, I think I'm just gonna not care.
I listen to Viking war chants, and I'm pretty sure 75-80% of them are totally AI. But I'm like, no one writes these for me. No one's making Viking war chants for me. So I'm totally doing this. I think what we're gonna get to is that line from Jurassic Park where Dotson, we got Dotson here. Nobody cares.
Yes, but people who do care are the Canadians over at Kobo, who have joined the Butlerian jihad against AI books. Jonathan?
According to the bookseller, Rakuten Kobo rejected 45% of every book submitted. Okay, that's a weird way to say it. 45% of all books submitted to its Writing Life self-publishing platform last year. Over 80% of those rejections happened because Kobo suspected the manuscripts were largely or entirely AI-generated and of very low quality. CEO Michael Tamblyn called the flood a fire hose of machine-written content that would have been barely a factor in previous years. Kobo has declared its own Butlerian jihad. Books don't get to have machines don't get to have dreams.
So compare this to Amazon, which is totally fine with AI content as long as you disclose. So Amazon has a much more open approach. They're not trying to police what's written with AI, what's written with the aid of AI, what's had AI for editing but wasn't really written with AI, what's been falsely flagged by AI. Amazon's not messing with that. They're just saying disclose it to the reader and we're fine. And you checking the box that it's disclosed, that's not featured in a particularly prominent way inside the platform. In fact, I'm not sure if it's on the sales page. I've never noticed it on a sales page. I will say that. It might be somewhere on the page, but they don't make a big deal about it. Amazon is much more friendly to AI, which makes sense because Amazon benefits from the AI ecosystem growing, because Amazon's real money doesn't come from selling ebooks. It comes from selling AI services to other AI companies.
Yeah.
So they set their computers help run ChatGPT. Their computers help run Anthropic. They resell. In fact, they're part owners of, I think, both Anthropic and ChatGPT. I know they own a piece of Anthropic for sure. So they want AI to flourish, and they're not going to take any overtly anti-AI actions. Whereas Rakuten is an advertising platform that is getting really hurt by people getting their answers from AI rather than browsing web pages, where Rakuten is placing ads. And so they have a financial incentive to try to hurt AI as much as they can. They're not very powerful, so there's not a lot they can do. And most American authors don't even know what Kobo is, but I will say it is quite popular in Canada. Even though I'm not sure if Kobo's based in Canada or if it's just popular in Canada. And I suspect this move will be popular in Canada too.
Oh, absolutely. I don't see it as really a bad thing. It's actually to take a hard line in this market is a way of like setting themselves apart. Like if you can guarantee or claim you can guarantee that every book on this platform is written by humans, that's kind of a big deal. Because
like
that's a complaint over on Amazon.
And Tatooine. No droids here, right? Droids. They kick the droids out at the door. We don't accept their kind.
We don't want their kind.
The Pope wants you to finish your novel. Get to it already.
Done.
God wills it.
God wills it. According to the official Pontifex X account on June 24th, Pope Leo XIV posted a direct challenge to writers everywhere. Dear writers, we need your imagination, your narrative creativity, and your lively thinking. We need these to create spaces of freedom and authenticity within which divine grace can make the promise of consolation and peace resound. Now, as a hardcore independent Baptist, I have to say that you can't.
Any sentence
not
that
because
opens
he
with
said
that. Any
I
sentence
think
that
he's
opens
absolutely
with
right.
that disclaimer
and
is going to be fire.
It's very
it's gonna
well
make people
stated.
angry.
So Pope Leo XIV welcomed roughly 20 major international authors to the Vatican. It marked the 100th anniversary of the Libreria. I have to do it in Italian. Libreria Editrice Vaticana, the Holy See's official publishing house, founded in 1926. Among the guests sat Nobel laureate John Fosse, Pulitzer winners Marilyn Robinson and Elizabeth Strout, plus Jonathan Safran Foer, Colin McCann, and others. So writers did not miss the memo. There's so many fun replies.
Yeah, I was like, why did this go viral? Because the tweet itself was likely written with AI, and it was so abstract and vague. It's just like vague platitudes encouraging writers to write. And I will say, as someone who goes to a lot of Christian writers conferences, nothing the Pope said is not something I haven't heard in a dozen keynotes already. It's like your act of creation is honoring God and it's advancing the kingdom, which is all good. It's all true. I agree with all of it. But it's like, why does this tweet of all tweets have 8 million views and all?
Because every author was retweeting it, and then some people were going, "See, even the Pope wants George R.R. Martin to finish the Winds of Winter." So now the Pope has said it. God wills it. Deus vult. Finish the book.
Deus vult.
Deus vult.
All right, now it's time for some author alerts. These are quick news items that we will see if we can do quickly. And for the first time, yet again, traditional publishing's growth is either negative or flat, and indie publishing is growing faster. Story has been demoted from a regular segment to an author alert segment because it's the same story every month. But there's still some things here we do want to share. The most recent StatShot numbers from the American Association of American Publishers. Jonathan?
So here we go. Overall publishing revenue rose 4.4% year over year to $887.7 million for the month of April. Year-to-date revenues through April climbed 1.7% to $3.7 billion. Trade consumer books increased 3.6% to $768.9 million in April. Within trade, paperbacks rose 10%, digital audio jumped 11.9%, hardbacks fell 3.1%, and ebooks went down 1.2%. Education materials rose 5.5%, professional and scholarly publishing went up 0.3%, religious presses gained 2.8%, and then year-to-date trade revenues rose just 1%, while education materials increased 3.5%, so not keeping up with inflation.
So just realize these are the TradPub numbers. And what we always do when we share the StatShot report numbers, which I don't see the rest of the industry doing, is we compare it to two things. One, we compare it to the consumer price index, because if you grow by 4%, but inflation is 5%, you really shrank by 1%. So like you have to bring in inflation.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it's really easy to look like you're growing when you're not. And then the other thing that we bring in is the KDP Global Fund as a proxy for indie publishing overall. Now, obviously, there's a lot more to indie publishing than just the KDP Global Fund, but the KDP Global Fund allows us to do an apples-to-apples comparison any month to any preceding month in terms of how much money is flowing into at least a piece of indie world, which gives us a good comparison. So TradPub grew 4.4% and indie publishing grew 11%. If you adjust those both for inflation, TradPub drops to basically zero and indie publishing is still growing by 7%, which means indie publishing is gaining market share yet again.
We're winning.
Little by little, brick by brick. And you'll actually learn why as we get to the Zeitgeist segment. Our Zeitgeist segment at the end It's another spicy one. I
Woo,
almost
like spicy.
wanted to put this one as another members only Zeitgeist. It was too exciting, too cancelable, but we're currently planning to release it on the full feed. God help us.
It's gonna be good. Deus both.
So Patron Appreciation Month ends in 4 days. If you want to become a patron of the Novel Marketing Podcast, which also supports Author Update, because it's all running through Author Media, which is my company. If you want to become a patron and support me, now's the time to do it. Because I'm giving a gift to all patrons in the month of June, which is free lifetime access to my course, How to Get Booked as a Podcast Guest.
And Margaret reinforces this message.
We have mold in our house. We have had to evacuate our house days before Margaret's due date. Excuse me. And I am still in the house. I'm behind a closed door. I put in a new filter, but I'm still in my still in the house as I record this. But we're sleeping somewhere else. And so please consider becoming a patron. Thank you those who are doing super chats. But it's not about me. It's about you. You get the free course. You all and you get lifetime access to the course. But you have to, and this is important, I'm going to say this again, if you're a patron and you have not gotten your lifetime access, you have to get your lifetime access this month.
Yes.
Because I turn it off in July. But there's other bonuses to becoming a patron. You get a Q&A with me. I do a Q&A once a month with patrons, although I'm not doing one in July because of the new baby. You get access at the $10 level to the patron toolbox. All patrons get the bonus Q&A episode, and all patrons get exclusive discounts on over $1,000 worth of discounts, mostly on my courses. But I totally forgot in our Book Vault segment last week, which has now become our most popular segment on the show ever.
I know.
We're now at 4,000 subscribers. And at no point in that segment did I mention that patrons get free Book Vault registration. It's the world's most natural integration. They don't pay me for that. I don't have any sort of ongoing financial relationship with Book Vault. Everybody who's accusing us. I will say that they sponsored the last Novel Marketing Conference. So they were there. They paid for sponsorship there. They haven't reached out to sponsor the next Novel Marketing Conference. They might still. I'm friendly with them. That was not a paid segment. But I do appreciate them giving a free registration to our patrons. So lots of discounts, lots of reasons to become a patron. You can become a patron at novelmarketing.com/patron. That's novelmarketing.com/patron.
You guys ever gotten like one of those old time coupon books? You'd like buy it for like 10 or 20 bucks.
I love
it has
those.
like $9,000 of discounts in it.
Yeah.
Okay, so this is like brain dead. Do this, guys. What?
I loved it. My dad was not. He was a big into saving money. We didn't go out to eat, or he's very frugal. But those coupon books were like our fun pass to the town, because he would go take us out to eat if he had a coupon for it.
That's right. That's right.
So the joys of having a CPA dad, and I have not seen one of those coupon books for sale in a long time.
I know. It's because they're a good deal. All right. BookBub launches a new in Kindle Unlimited promotion. According to BookBub, the company launched its new in Kindle Unlimited email promotion on June 25th. I actually got that email. BookBub editors handpick titles in their first 90 days of Kindle Unlimited enrollment and send genre-targeted emails to hundreds of thousands of power readers who already subscribe to the service, linking them straight to the Amazon product page. Authors now have a direct new lever to trigger immediate page read spikes and sustained ranking gains on Amazon right after enrollment, with early partners already reporting strong revenue lifts that continue well past the promotion date. So you have another avenue of using BookBub to promote your book, even if it's in KU.
And a new way to get a new email that initially won't have a lot of competition, because most people don't know about this. It's also a good tool for a book that doesn't have a lot of reviews yet, because if it's a brand new book and it's new in Kindle Unlimited, the fact that it's doesn't have as many reviews is probably not as big of a deal. So I encourage you to check this out. Jason asked, how do we get lifetime access? Just by being a member? No, you have to actually check out. If as a patron, you have access to a page that walks you through how to do it. It's right there at patreon.com/novel marketing. It's the it's one of the top posts, and it gives you a coupon code and a link to click, and you need to click that link. It should embed the coupon code automatically, but you can put that coupon code in and check out. And you have to check out and complete the purchase. You don't have to put your credit card info in. But if you don't complete your purchase in the month of June, you won't get the course. Although I will say, with all of the drama with the mold and the evacuation and the emergency move,
you might get through July 2nd.
I have hundreds of unread emails, a lot of which are like, I can't, some of which are tech support people who don't have their passwords or got confused with the email. So I may have to give some extra days if I can't get through all the tech support emails, but just assume that I will catch up on the emails if you have it till the end of June. Also, I have a great guide on how to never forget an email ever again. It has helped many authors, and it also helps me because the number one source of tech support emails that I get are authors who have more than one email address, and they never can remember which email address they use to sign up for which service, and they'll often sign up for the same thing more than one time because Patreon will let you join as many times as you want as long as you keep feeding it a new email address, and the same is true with every other website. So, CCRO.
CC Robinson.
CC Robinson, thank you. It says Mold Fighters Unite. Thank you, CC.
Mold Fighters Unite.
Yeah, I'm really hoping that my family is sick with a cold and they come back and they say, no, there's no mold in your house. I don't give that a high likelihood. My wife, that would make my wife very happy. Given the mildew smell, I don't give that a high likelihood. But
maybe your brain is just producing that smell though, because you're manifesting it, you know?
Technically, mildew is not black mold. So it hangs out in a bad neighborhood, though, I will say. So
all the best sentences start with technically.
Well, actually, you can't smell black mold. One other, as we're talking about Patreon, Jonathan, you've launched a new Patreon for your book, Devil Dog, which is on Royal Road. You can read it for free on Royal Road, but it's a good example of what I just recorded an episode, will be coming out in a few weeks, of an AI augmented audiobook where Jonathan does the primary read, but he uses AI for some of the voices and he uses sound effects, and it creates a cinematic experience. It's like listening to a movie, but he was able to do it himself. And I'm hoping at some point you'll do an author arsenal on your process.
Yes, that's what I'm planning on doing.
Grander experience. So we'll link to the author arsenal episode when it goes live. But if you want to hear what it's like, I encourage you to become a patron of Jonathan's Patreon. It's a fun book. It's a Christian who goes to hell. He's a Marine. He's not supposed to be there, and he just slays demons. And it's a lit RPG, and it's totally not a derivative work from the book Doom or the game Doom. Never listen to anybody who says this. This is an original work, not derivative of Doom. It's a Christian Marine killing demons with a shotgun, but it is not a derivative work of Doom.
Look, so first of all, I never made this claim. Okay, I never said this was original. Okay, but no, my stomach line is dissolving now because apparently the guy who made Doom is reading my books now. He grabbed a couple of them on Kindle Unlimited, so Sandy Peterson is reading Semper Die right now, and so he just made Doom and Quake and Age of Empires and everything that made my childhood what it was. So that's something. But yeah, I'm planning on doing at least 2 of these a week, and so you guys can track the progress on that and see how well it's doing. And I'm doing early releases on the text versions as well. So Patreon backers get stories a week early, and they also get the audiobook versions of these that have the sound effects and the music and stuff. It's a lot of work, but my process is becoming faster. And so I'm eager to share it with you guys to see if it can help you out in whatever you guys are working on as well.
Yeah.
And if you like this kind of story, absolutely back this. It's fun.
And once you get I would wait actually on the author arsenal thing until you get the process kind of ironed out.
Yeah, that's what I'm doing. Yeah.
So real quick, an author arsenal challenge. If you want a Marine encouraging you to hit your writing goals,
encourage.
Jonathan has got
it's fear of failure is what it is.
Yeah. He does these coaching groups, and his people hit their goals. And they're happy that they hit their goals. They may be a little sad in how hard they worked to get there. I'm putting a link to the Google Doc in the description. All right. In technology news, we have some kind of big news, and this is maybe a first ever. And I want to explain why this is such a big deal. Apple is raising its prices on its existing Macs. And this is historic. Historically, computers get faster and cheaper. There's this concept in computing called Moore's Law, which is that transistors reduce in size by 50% every 18 months. That's the technical definition of Moore's Law. And there's been a lot of debates if Moore's Law is coming to an end or if it's slowing down. But in general, whether it's always every 18 months or sometimes it's speeding up, sometimes it's slowing down. But this has been a cadence that has followed since transistors were almost large enough to see with your own eyes.
Yeah.
And now we're measuring them in nanometers. So it's been just an epic exponential curve. And the result has been every time you go to buy a new computer, the computer has been faster than the last one that you bought. And the price has stayed the same. So that $2,000 computer was like the price for a computer back in the 90s. Like I remember trying to get a computer, convince my parents to get me a new computer, and it was like $2,000 for a new one. And so I'm like trying to get parts to build and upgrade my old one because $2,000 is a lot of money. And but $2,000 is still the price for computers. So we've had all this inflation. Computer prices have not really changed. In the early 2000s, Dell declared a price war against Compaq, and it created this kind of cheap netbook market, and Compaq computers got kind of crushed. Dell was the hometown company, so as an Austinite, we were very happy that Dell crushed Compaq. Compaq was a Houston company, and they got beat. Take that, Houston. Houston and Austin actually have an old history. A lot of people don't know this, but Houston invaded Austin trying to steal the capital of Texas. And a woman fired a cannon that was the Indian alarm cannon when the Houstonians attacked. And everyone grabbed their muskets and chased off the Houstonians. And Austin preserved its status as the capital. And if you go to downtown Austin today, you'll see a statue of a woman firing a cannon. A lot of people think she's a Revolutionary War era, the lady doing it. No, she's a Texan firing a cannon, not at Indians, but at Houstonians.
The real enemy.
we got to keep Houston down. They may be bigger, and they may be better.
These are some numbers on the price increases. So the base Mac.
Yeah, bring me back, Jonathan. Bring me back. Oh man, the mold's getting
going off
head.
into Texas history here. The base MacBook Air rose from $1099 to $1299. The entry-level MacBook Pro climbed from $1699 to $1999. The new MacBook Neo increased from $599 to $699. And then same things down here. iPad Air jumped from $599 to $749. The iPad Pro went from $999 to $1199. It's just
basically the entire suite of products rose in price. And so let's talk about why. Because
first, I want to say, if you'd been watching Author Update a year ago, we told you to buy before this happened.
We did. And I will say, I actually predicted, and I've started saving. I used to buy new computer equipment and like resell the old stuff because Mac stuff has surprisingly good resale value historically. And so I would sell my old Macs on Facebook Marketplace or Craigslist or whatever. And I did an episode 3 or 4 years ago about the risk of China blockading Taiwan and how there was a risk of basically you not being able to overnight, not being able to buy a new iPhone for love or for money because the chips came out of TSMC, Taiwan Semiconductor. They all come from this one factory, and it's very vulnerable to any kind of Chinese blockade action. That factory needs a lot of electricity, so disruptions to the Taiwanese electric grid could hurt production. But even if production continues, which is likely because China wants to seize that factory, they don't want to destroy that factory, getting those chips out of a blockaded country, very expensive. Our current maritime fleet of the planet, they don't have a mindset of blockade running. They're starting to develop it, but the historically, the kind of people who've gone into shipping have been very risk averse. And this whole blockade runner thing is more of a Star Trek thing and like a Confederate Civil War thing, not a modern. We don't have a culture of that
We should
currently.
bring it back though. That's a fun story concept.
Well, it may come back if we keep having these Strait of Hormuz dramas.
Strait of Hormuz, we had Taiwan. There's lots of places that's happening. Yeah.
So this is globalism breaking down, and some people think that this is the Americans kind of giving a signal to the rest of the world. Hey, we've been providing freedom of navigation for the whole planet that we provide for free and we don't charge you anything for. So every ship gets to use the oceans without fear of piracy because the United States Navy keeps them safe from piracy, and they don't have to pay for that, which is this amazing public good that we have offered the world. And in return, we get hatred from the world. They hate us. And despite the
not
fact
lately, though, the people visiting for the World Cup are
then
kind of falling in love.
They visit for the World Cup, like, wow, Americans aren't nearly as bad as I was led to believe.
Have you tried biscuits and gravy?
We keep your ships safe, right? Like every container ship that stops at your harbor, we keep safe at our expense so that y'all can have free and healthcare. Anyway, I'm getting off topic again.
Yes.
But it's not just a geopolitics thing, which I predicted. The other bigger issue is AI. So while Moore's Law is still happening, we're still making breakthroughs. In fact, I just saw IBM, I think, just announced they've invented a new sub-nanometer process or 1 nanometer process. Like we're continuing to make transistors smaller and smaller. Moore's Law is marching ever onward, maybe not as fast as it was, but it's still happening. But the demand for chips is now outpacing Moore's Law, which has happened before, but not to the degree that it's happening now. It's not uncommon for memory prices to jump up and down and sometimes go up. But usually that fluctuation is the sort of thing that companies like Apple can avoid by buying chips way ahead of time and locking in prices. But the current demand for chips is so high that TSMC fabs are getting booked out years in advance, where they had already sold every DRAM manufacturer, if I'm remembering correctly, and we did report on this, had sold out their entire 2026 production back in 2025. So literally every memory chip that they were going to make, if everything ran according to plan, had already been sold a year ahead of time. So companies were paying now for a memory chip a year from now. And these fabs, I have a friend who works in one. We have fabs here in Austin. And I actually have a friend who works in the clean room. And he was talking about how they use every element on the periodic table. Like the complexity of turning sand into a computer chip is so mind-bogglingly complex. It breaks the mind. And it's not the sort of thing that you can just build another factory to make more computer chips. It just does not work that way. All right. They're creating an off-topic counter. I have mold poisoning, people.
He's raving.
And we haven't even gotten to the Zeitgeist segment yet.
All right, so a couple more stories. Did the Fable ban, so remember we talked about last time Anthropic's Fable? Well, the US government turned it off. Did that ban freeze AI development? A couple of weeks ago, the US Commerce Department issued an export control directive that barred access for any foreign national to use Fable AI. Anthropic complied by turning the models off for every customer. 2 weeks later, on June 26th, OpenAI announced it would not release its new GPT 5.6 family to the public right away. The company is starting with a limited preview for a small group of trusted partners, who I'm sure have something to do with the U.S. Department of Commerce.
So there's two reads on this, and I'll go through this quickly because it's kind of reporting on news that's going to happen in a few weeks. One read is OpenAI wants the kind of press that Anthropic got by creating this new super scary model that you weren't allowed to have, and by basically putting the velvet rope across the door and making people wait in line for it. It created this frenzy, and it kind of hacked people's psychology. So that could be an argument. The other argument, though, is that the Trump administration is finally doing what the Biden administration threatened to do, which is regulating AI and using this export ban as a way to do it, which is an incredibly powerful mechanism that, at least in the short term, gives them unilateral control over this industry, because there's no way currently for Anthropic to know your customer, to ensure that the users are foreign nationals or not. They'll be able to build that eventually, but that's non-trivial to build and to enforce. And until they do, all the Trump administration needs to do is say, this is a weapon. You're not allowed to export weapons. Congress has given the president a lot of authority to prevent weapons from being exported, as has the Supreme Court. The federal government all agrees that for purposes of national defense and moving quickly, the White House just gets to do stuff in this realm. And the AI industry did themselves no favors by
Anthropic's lawyers are still going, sir, repeat after me. I will not call our new product a cyber weapon.
Yeah, they gave themselves no cover, right? They can't, because they are like, we are a cyber weapon, we're very dangerous. And Trump administration is like, you are a cyber weapon, you're very dangerous, and now you're banned. And they're like, no, we're not that dangerous. Stop. No. The one other piece of news here that I'm very excited about is OpenAI is fixing their naming. So they're going to have now Sol or Luna, Sol, and Luna, Terra, and Sol for their cheap, medium, and expensive models. That kind of, as the model gets bigger, they have this naming now that you can tell one model from the other. Similar to Anthropic, which has Haiku and Sonnet and Opus and Fable and Mythos. And by creating that hierarchy and having a good naming scheme, it makes it way easier to keep track, because as somebody who gets into the weeds on this, keeping track is not easy. And now it is time for the Zeitgeist.
Zeitgeist.
Take a sip from my mug. Oh, I am planning, let me know if you want me to do this, to create a podcast just for our Zeitgeist segments for people who are not fans of any of the author news, but who want just the cultural analysis news. It won't be on YouTube. We already have a YouTube playlist of just the Zeitgeist segments, but this will be a audio podcast of just the Zeitgeist. And I almost named it Oops, All Zeitgeist is the podcast name. I was going to launch it this week, but I had to quickly pack and move 4 small children and a pregnant wife, and it didn't get moved. But anyway, let me know if y'all want that, if you'd be interested in it. But we have a Zeitgeist story, and that is Vigilante stories are topping the charts. They're surging in popularity, and we're going to break down why. Jonathan?
So, Citizen Vigilante is at the top of the Apple TV charts despite having hardly any budget and a really weird lead, let me just say. Larry Correa's American Paladin just displaced all the romantasy titles for a couple of days to take #1 in the Amazon charts of urban fantasy. According to Apple TV chart trackers from Flix Patrol, Uwe Boll's Citizen Vigilante muscled into the top 10 movies on iTunes in the United States days after its June 19th, 2026 release. The low-budget film starring Armie Hammer as an American who turns vigilante against criminals in the justice system.
Okay, pause. When we say low budget, we're talking like, I saw one report that is as little as $5 million. So this is almost like indie film level budget. And the reports that I've seen is that it's already grossed something like $65 million. And it's not in it, and it's just beginning to surge in popularity. And that's with no theatrical release. And so when we're saying low budget and we're saying surging in popularity, this is a huge deal. It's something that everyone needs to be paying attention to get a sense of the zeitgeist. Okay, back to Jonathan.
So, according to the European conservative, German film authorities de facto banned the film by refusing the movie any age rating whatsoever, despite the violence level matching John Wick or The Equalizer, which are both freely available in Germany. The story draws partial inspiration from real German cases that ended with suspended sentences for violent attackers. American audiences responded to the German censorship by pushing the film up the charts anyway. So if you've ever been frustrated by a story that you saw in social media or whatever about somebody who murdered somebody and then just was given a suspended sentence because they looked sad when they were in court, sounds like this movie was made for you.
And rescuing the German people from German tyrannical governments is kind of our thing. But if we have to come there a third time, I'm telling you, we are not leaving. We are going to just run you as a puppet state. It's going to be like Rome rescuing Greece.
How many times I have to teach you this lesson, old man?
Yeah, we're not. There will be no Gundestag if we come back. All right, you will have your protectorate status and an American governor that you don't vote for. So I'm warning you now, German people, embrace freedom. Because we're not rescuing you again the way you want to get rescued.
Make me come back. I feel like a dad. And don't make me come back in there.
We already have 50,000 troops in your country, so it wouldn't be hard. You consider yourselves threatened
and bored. So the same week, Larry Correia's new novel, American Paladin, sees the #1 position in urban fantasy categories and strong placements across hardcover, ebook, and hot new releases, which came after his $300,000 Kickstarter. So
he double dipped.
These numbers aren't even including his true fans who backed the Kickstarter. Okay, this is people who just bought the book because it was on Amazon. Now, the book follows Mike Spears, a drifter vigilante who hunts monstrous incursions that comes from thin places in the modern American West. He operates with a gun and a code, answering to no official authority, which is the way all of these should go.
And I will say, I started listening to this book yesterday. And as y'all know, I've had a crazy week. And I'm already halfway through this book. It's so good. And it is very much more a vigilante story than it is an urban fantasy. So this character is a regular vigilante hunting human monsters while he's trying to find the inhuman monsters, or the like alien, fae, whatever. I'm not going to spoil it. So we'll just say monsters. But he's keeping his axe sharp, practicing on kind of garden variety human monsters. And it almost seemed like the same character from the Citizen Vigilante story, especially at the beginning. The stories diverge pretty quickly because Larry Correia's story is supernatural. But we are seeing what would seem like a new archetype character, this vigilante character. But this is not a new archetype. This is a time-tested archetype that has appealed to American readers for hundreds of years, and it keeps reemerging.
Oh, this is in the Bible. Like, this concept is in the Bible. Let judgment run down like waters in the streets. God called for this. When there was no justice, God said, here's a judge. You're gonna get justice.
And Samson operated outside of the legal framework, right? He was fighting against the powers that be.
Shamgar had a sharp stick. Okay, that's what he operated with.
So now, vigilante fiction has existed for a long time, but there's a big shift that has happened just this year. So, and I want to use Spider-Man as an example, because for many of you, the first time you heard the word vigilante was that character J. Jonah Jameson saying, he's a vigilante, right? With his cigar in his mouth. It was like, we got to get pictures of that spider character. He's a vigilante. And Spider-Man was called a vigilante because he was fighting forces that the police couldn't fight, right? Spider-Man was fighting gods and aliens and scientific marvels that your kind of typical cop with a pistol just is completely incapable of fighting. And so the cops were good, and the cops weren't really fighting against Spider-Man. He was working with the police as much as he was working outside of the police, but it was more of I can fight this alien, you can't let me do what you can't do. That is not what we're seeing in this new Zeitgeist. It's not a matter of can't, it's a matter of won't.
They're not doing it.
If you watch Citizen Vigilante, which is free right now on X, Elon Musk paid whatever money to make it free for 48 hours to boost it. And if you watch it, and I've watched pieces of it, but I will say American Paladin is more fun. It's Larry Correia's very best work, in my opinion. And I'm not saying something because I think I've read all of his books. But very similar speeches are given by both characters. in these stories. One is in a European context, one is in an American context, but the police won't fight this, they won't research this, they won't prosecute this, they'll let this person out. In fact, the kind of people that these characters are going after are people who got convicted often, but were let off. And it's like, well, you shouldn't have been let off for doing this heinous thing, raping or murdering. And so I'm going to give you justice. And in Citizen Vigilante, the American, because he's an American in Europe dispensing justice, he goes to the victim and he asks him, do you feel like you got justice? And this woman who's all battered is like, no, I don't feel like I got justice because the rapist was let off because the rapist was a migrant. And so he's like, okay. And then he goes and he kills the migrant, which is why it got banned in Germany.
Yeah.
Because you can't, you can kill Russians all you want in your fictional stories. The Germans are fine with that, but you can't kill migrants from anywhere else.
Honestly, the Germans are a little sensitive about being considered racist. So, like,
they're scared because they know we can come back and it'll be really easy this time because we never really left. And we'll be just like ancient Rome, right? Ancient Rome never fought an unjust war. If you read Titus Livy, they were always invited in. They were always fixing crises, and Greece kept asking for help, and Rome kept helping until suddenly everyone in Greece started considering themselves Romans. Now, there's a long history here, and I want to share some of this history because it's important for understanding how to craft these kinds of stories. Because if you want to craft a story that really resonates in the zeitgeist, you shouldn't be copying Larry Correia, and you shouldn't be copying Citizen Vigilante, which is the worst name for a show. You want to copy some of these older models, or at least be influenced by the older models. So it goes back to, I did some research, and it goes back to at least 1782. The legislature indemnified Colonel Charles Lynch, that name might sound familiar, who conducted extrajudiciary tribunals against loyalist plotters during the Revolutionary War. So he would punish with whippings, fines, and property seizures people who were loyalists to the British. So this is outside of the legal framework. And it goes back to an even older practice, which was known as tarring and feathering. If you've seen the John Adams HBO special, which I encourage you to watch right now to celebrate the 4th of July, the first two episodes are really good. And it portrays a tarring and feathering, which was a unjust tax collector in portrayal in the film. But this is based off of a real account that was in the Boston Gazette, January 25th, 1774, if any of you want to read the actual account. But this tax collector was trying to collect taxes on a tax that the colonists did not want to pay. And so they tore his clothes off, covered him in boiling pitch, and then while that pitch or tar was still hot and boiling, they threw feathers on him. So the boiling pitch would create second or even third degree burns. This is very traumatic. Some people died of tarred and feathering. I don't know if anyone in the colonies did, but it was used in the old world as well. And it was an extrajudicial punishment, often used against government officials. And this act of the people taking justice into their own hands was known as Lynch's Law, or appealing to Lynch's Law. So this, going back to this Colonel Lynch. So if somebody or if a judge failed to give justice, the people would appeal to Lynch's Law, and there would be a lynching, which could be up to and including hanging. They would hang a horse thief or whoever. And lynchings took on a racial connotation, but they were used against whoever the mob thought needed additional justice. So it didn't always have a racial flavor to it. And Colonel Lynch was hanging loyalists, Englishmen who were loyal to the English crown. So it certainly had no racial flavor to it initially. But the origin in literature emerged a little bit after this. So it happened in real life for 40 years at least before we see it in fiction. So the origin of the masked vigilante archetypal character goes back to a book by Robert Montgomery Bird, who published Nick of the Woods. So Nick of the Woods was this Quaker. Quakers are pacifists. So it's the quintessential peaceful man, right? So Quakers believed in
He was a Quaker.
dying.
Was.
He was a Quaker. And his family were killed by Indians. And his government did nothing about it, right? It's a classic story. And except he didn't have a particular set of skills because he was a Quaker. And so he had to cultivate a particular set of skills, and he became Nick of the Woods, where he was dispensing justice himself because the courts failed him. And he was known as the Jibbenenase, or Nick of the Woods. I don't know how to pronounce that. And where he goes on this like killing rampage to bring justice for his dead family. So this story is really old, and there's a lot of scholarship connecting Zorro and Batman and every masked vigilante that kind of dominated the comic books in the 20th century. All can trace their literary lineage to Nick of the Woods. Nick of the Woods you can read for free. It's a public domain book. You can get a free copy. You can also use Nick of the Woods and write your own vigilante stories without violating anyone's copyrights, because this is super duper public domain. It's not like, oh, it just entered the public domain. It's like been in the public domain so long, most of you have never heard of Nick of the Woods. And this character, this masked vigilante, is the Punisher. Nick of the Woods is Batman. Nick of the Woods is Zorro. Nick of the Woods is Citizen Vigilante. Nick of the Woods is the character from American Paladin, whose name I'm blanking on. But he's the paladin from it's the same woods. It's the same fear of like Batman is here to make the bad guys afraid, right? And Batman sometimes kills people, right? So you can kind of see the zeitgeist. Batman tracks with the zeitgeist pretty closely. Sometimes it's a goofy show, sometimes it's dark and brooding. But you'll notice Batman's been killing more and more people in recent years because the zeitgeist demands it. That readers are longing for that kind of brutal justice because they're not feeling that justice is being provided in real life, and so they're seeking it in fiction. So Jaina says a Scarlet Pimpernel is also a foreshadow of the Batman. Now the Scarlet Pimpernel, that's a European story.
Well, that's foreign espionage. That was him versus the
so
French.
It's a little different in that he's acting as an agent for the English, or he's acting as an agent for the royalists. So it's more of which actually goes back to the Lynch. Colonel Lynch was only kind of sort of operating outside of the law, because it depends on your perspective, right? From the perspective of the British Crown, he was absolutely outside of the law. But from the perspective of the Patriots, the American Patriots, he was operating on a new law that hadn't been formed yet.
You know what was super fun that I haven't heard really anyone talk about is the Ministry of Ungentlemanly Warfare, which is this great movie that had Henry Cavill starring, and it was about the birth of wait, what are they called? What is Britain's special forces called?
The SAS?
SAS. I kept thinking SS, and I'm like, that's not right. They're the birth of the SAS.
You just got us demonetized.
Yeah, I know.
In case they weren't already
I don't have a tattoo of them, I promise.
Making threats to Germany.
We didn't all do that. But the story is about how these guys were tasked by Winston Churchill against the orders of the British Admiralty to go and blow up this ship that was supplying air filters to all the U-boats that were in the Atlantic that were keeping the Americans from sending supplies to England. It was strangling England and forcing them into submission. So the Admiralty had already surrendered as far as they were concerned. They were just trying to pressure Winston Churchill to do it. So they send Henry Cavill and his mob down to blow up this ship and ease the stranglehold that's on England. It's a good movie, and it's about, they say this a lot. They say it's hard men doing hard things, obeying no law except that of the man standing beside them.
The British Navy does not play around. When France surrendered to the Germans and the French Navy officially shifted to being controlled by the French puppet state, the French the British ships that were, when they got word of this, they ordered the French ships to surrender. And of course, a French ship is never going to surrender to a British ship. And so the British ships sank the French ships. They gave warning, sank them. And all these French ships, all these French sailors just died because the British were not playing around. They didn't want those boats to go to the Germans. And so they just sank them all over the Atlantic. They're shooting down any French ship that refused to surrender. And no French captain was going just on pride, even if they weren't planning on joining the Germans. But a lot of them got sank and a lot of them died.
But anyway, this kind of story really appeals to people because the Admiralty is wrong. They're wrong. And we need these guys to go and do things. And they were punished. They were imprisoned at the end of the movie by the Admiralty for violating orders from an admiral who directly gave them to him.
One of the revolutionary flags is a picture of a tree, a very tall, I think it's a fir tree. And it's a yellow flag with a green tree. And then at the bottom of the tree, it says, "In appeal to heaven." And that tree it was actually a common symbol in the Revolutionary War, and it represented a law that made it illegal to cut down really tall trees on your property, because America had the best trees. Nobody had better trees. We had the best trees, specifically for making ships' masts. And the British Navy really needed those ships' mast trees because you need a strong, straight tree to make a ship's mast. And so you could get arrested if you're trying to clear a field, cut down this tall tree. The British would have you arrested. It was one of the many grievances. I think it made it into the list in the Declaration of Independence, but it was one of the big sore points between the colonies and the royal government in England. And that phrase, "an appeal to heaven," implies this concept that there are laws of nature and nature's God, as Thomas Jefferson would say, that justice is higher than the law. And this is a Christian view, but it's also a very American view, because there's a lot of Christians who don't have this view. There's a lot of Christians who will use Romans 8:13 to say you've got to always submit all the time and forever. But there's an American flavor of Christianity that says we're going to appeal to heaven and we are going to kill you if you violate our rights. And if you violate justice, we will kill you. Right? And so you see that at Lexington. They had a weapons stash, an illegal stash of guns, and the British were marching to seize this illegal weapons stash. And a church, and because a lot of the men at Lexington specifically, Concord was like all of the Paul Revere folks, but at Lexington it was mostly all one church. It was a pastor and a lot of the men of his church. They stood in a line in between themselves and the British and the cache of guns, and they faced off. There was a shot heard around the world, and the game was on. The British got that stash of guns. They won that initial fight, but the road back to Boston was not an enjoyable one, and they left a lot of deposits of guns on the ground.
Yes,
as they died,
as they ran and died.
and we have been killing people as Americans who try to take our rights away ever since. And this is that. This is why this is a uniquely American figure, and why I think Citizen Vigilante, that character, is so revolutionary, because that's a very offensive character to the European mind. The European mind cannot comprehend, right? The Germans banned this movie. Right there, they will put up with so much sexual content, violent content, but this one, they bothered them, because one of the things that this character does in Citizen Vigilante, he doesn't just kill rapists and murderers. He also kills police officers, and he kills a judge at one point. So the judge that lets the rapist off, he kills him in a very brutal way. It's a very I'm not recommending Citizen Vigilante. I don't think I didn't watch all of it. It's very R-rated. It would have been fully, and is fully deserving of an R rating. But that character is a uniquely American character. I don't know. I can't imagine in my head, and they all in the chat may have an example of this, of a European equivalent who operates that far outside the law. Maybe Robin Hood, I guess. But you have to go really far back. Like Guy Fawkes from V from Vendetta, maybe. But he is a tragic character, right? He fails. The gunpowder plot fails, right? He's burned in effigy. So in Europe, it's a story of the vigilante failing, whereas in America, it's a story of the vigilante succeeding. Zorro kills the bad guy. Batman kills the bad guy. Citizen Vigilante kills the bad guy. And
yeah, I was just thinking about that, Holyoke. Law Abiding Citizen came out maybe 10 years ago. And in this case, the vigilante is Gerard Butler, and his family is raped and killed in his house. And one of the killers makes a deal and gets off. So he hunts him down and starts. It turns out he was like some CIA assassin who could kill people with their ties, kind of a thing. He just had mechanisms and stuff. And so it's about him using the legal system. But he would kill cops. He killed a judge, anybody who was associated with the travesty of justice that happened to his family. And when you're watching the movie, you're not sure if he's right or not.
And Jaina has a question. Zorro, wasn't he originally Spanish though? No. So the character takes place in a Spanish setting, but the story, according to a quick Google search that I just did, was created in 1919 by an American author and for an American audience. As was Citizen Vigilante, I suspect. I think the main target of that film was the American market. Not even though it's set in Europe, it's in English, and the main character is American, and his Americanness. He has so many guns. It kind of breaks the believability. It's like, how did he get all these guns in Europe? Like, I realize he's rich, but that's a lot of guns.
So in the Bible, God is very clear when he says, take care of the widows, the orphans, the defenseless, and the innocent, or I'm going to come for you. Or something will come for you. And when people say that they should follow the government, they're correct. It does say in Romans that you should obey the government. But you know the institution of government God put in place before the king? It was follow the law. It was a theocracy where God was in charge of the country, and every man was responsible for his home and responsible for the ancestral lands God had given him.
And family government. A lot of these stories
Yes.
are fathers who are avenging the deaths of their families, right?
So this is an extremely old scriptural concept, in that justice is brought by the father and enacted by the father, and sometimes groups of men. You know, we see in Judges when that travesty happened in the tribe of Benjamin, and they protected it. Well, they got together and kind of lost their minds over that. The idea of justice is the most. If justice is enacted where it's supposed to be, then everything is all right. Now, we see this kind of turn in Westerns, right? Where mob justice is wrong. And you know what? There is a point where mob justice is wrong. It cannot be feelings focused. It can't be impulse driven, which is largely how mobs operate. But sometimes the mob is right. Sometimes the mob can be like, you know what? You shouldn't rape little girls on the side of the road.
In the standard of justice that's written on our hearts, and you see this throughout history. You see it in in the Old Testament. You see it in Hammurabi's code: is an eye for an eye, and a tooth for a tooth, and a life for a life. So if you kill somebody, you have to die. That's the kind of default standard of justice. And there's this modern view. It's like, no, that leaves the world blind and toothless, which is basically saying we shouldn't have justice, and that's very scary. Now, there does need to be room for mercy. Like, ultimately, we're not advocating for vigilante justice. What you want is the government that wields the sword and provides that justice, so the mob doesn't take justice into its own hands, so that fathers don't need to feel the need to do justice. And we have a check on this with the jury system. So there was a case in Texas where a father came upon a man, I'll just say abusing, we'll keep it vague, his daughter, his like 12-year-old daughter. And this father started beating this man and didn't stop when this man ceased to be a threat. So under self-defense rules, you only get to defend yourself until the other person is not a threat. And then when they're no longer a threat, you have to stop defending yourself, because and this father didn't. He continued. He went all the way with his bare hands and killed this man who was abusing his daughter. And so it's violation of self-defense, doesn't have the right to do that. They brought him in, I think, for manslaughter, and brought it before a Texas jury. And the Texas jury looked at what this abuser was doing, looked at the father, and they said, I don't see a crime here. And the prosecutor left very sad that day because he didn't get his prosecution. And that's going back to that life for life kind of standard. And the problem with mob law, and why when you hear the term lynching, it has this kind of visceral kind of, you throw up in your mouth a little bit when you hear it, is that it's very easy for a mob to get worked into a frenzy, and it's very difficult for a mob to do justice. And one of the interesting things about these vigilante stories is that the protagonists in both stories are very careful only to execute guilty men, right? The paladin has this code, and he's very careful, like including like sometimes, I'm not going to give away spoilers, but he's very careful, as is the citizen vigilante character is very careful. And I think that as you're crafting these characters, if you're going to write a vigilante story, that carefulness has to be a part of it. Otherwise, people have that visceral kind of throw up in their mouth, because it's not justice if it's out of whack, right? If somebody strikes you and you kill them, like Cain said, or Cain's son said, you know, I killed a man for striking me, right? That's not justice either, right? That's not a life for a life. That's a life for an eye. And that's that out of whack the other way. So life for a life has to be balanced. And when things get out of balance in real life, people seek for them to be balanced in fiction. And this is an opportunity. And this goes to our final kind of part of this Zeitgeist segment, is that you're not going to get your vigilante story published with the traditional publisher, right? A major Hollywood studio is not going to pick up this story, but what you will get is resonance with readers. Arc Press is not a big publisher. They're a small publisher, and they've blundered this launch. They have the ebook priced at $14.99. The fact that Korea
still
is
stuck in
anywhere,
traditional ways. Yeah.
The fact that Korea is anywhere near this bestseller list with a $14.99 ebook is mind-boggling. And it's not in Kindle Unlimited, despite the fact that he already got to get the premium market with his Kickstarter. So they're really doing I've not been impressed with Arc Press's marketing or positioning or pricing. I think they're doing a good job with their editing, though, because the book's fantastic. But it's very impressive that he's on this list, and he's executed really well. But this is an opportunity for those of you who are outsiders, where you can just write the kind of book that readers are desperate for. There's a real hunger for this kind of fiction right now. In fact, I had a reader email me asking basically for the segment, and he has a book. I'm going to give him a shout out if I can find what is the name of his book?
You sent it to me too.
Yeah, it's Dylan Hunter. His Patreon is patreon.com/Dylan Hunter Team. He's doing a vigilante style story in the same theme as a episodic story. And I will say, vigilante fiction lends itself very well for episodic storytelling. Zorro was episodic, I believe, as a pulp. Batman has been episodic for 80 years. The Punisher, episodic, right? It's very easy to have a bad guy of the week. You open the story with the bad thing the bad guy did, and you show the justice system not giving justice to the victim, and then you introduce your vigilante who comes in and gives justice anyway. Rinse and repeat, and that story will sell. It will sell.
But the
Readers are desperate for it.
The most popular ones of these are the ones that have fathers as
have a particular set of skills.
Yeah, Taken was not a new story, but it hit the market so hard because everyone's like, yeah, I like this. When the Mandalorian lost Baby Yoda in season 2, they went and they got him. And everyone, I just showed my kids Mandalorian season 1, and when that scout trooper punches Baby Yoda in the bag and you hear that little squeak, they were like, they visibly started on the couch because they couldn't believe someone punched Baby Yoda, and it just created this, yes, go get him all.
I think fatherhood is what makes it the difference between a vigilante story and a revenge story. Because a revenge story is another very common kind of story.
Well, that's kind of Monte Cristo, you know?
Right. But the revenge story is not nearly as satisfying right now as this vigilante story. So let's tease out some of these differences. And Jonathan, I'll be curious to hear your story. So the vigilante story starts often as a revenge, where their family is harmed.
Both start as a pursuit of
revenge.
satisfaction.
Right, satisfaction. But the father then extends his kind of fatherly protectiveness, starts extending it over others, where there's another young girl who looks like his daughter who's been abused by the bad guys, and so he goes and kills those bad guys too, right? It's like, I couldn't give my daughter justice, so I'm going to give this young lady justice, right? So it's that kind of the father. So it's very much kind of like going back to your ancient government approach, where he's taking on the role of the oldest government, right? The family government that predates the state, and saying the state has failed you, but you know what? For right now, you can be my daughter, and I will bring you the justice that a father can give, which is different than John Wick getting revenge for his dog, right? No one sees John Wick as a vigilante story. No one sees what he's doing as justice, even though he follows a very similar code, right? John Wick isn't shooting up everybody at the nightclub. He's only shooting the bad guys at the nightclub. But it doesn't feel like a vigilante story because he
breaks the rules of the Continental.
Yeah, he's not giving satisfaction for victims, right? The whole time he's fighting for himself, basically, or at least for the most part. And so
it becomes a survival story once he gets past the initial. It's just when he gets the satisfaction of killing the one that killed his dog and took his car. That was a step too far for the Russian mob.
And it's also not a life for a life.
Yeah.
A human life and a dog life aren't equivalent. I know that's a controversial statement. That may be the most y'all are going to clip this. It's going to be the most controversial thing I say the whole time.
But no one thinks it's just a dog, because they did a good job of storytelling where they made the dog a surrogate for his wife. It was her last expression of love to him. And that's what was killed casually. It was what is destroyed. I mean, my wife, my mom, they're not violent people, and they're always like, shoot him again, because of that.
But it's about vengeance, so it's not about justice. And I think that
vengeance and justice, they're in a Venn diagram. Okay? Because it's all about satisfaction. God established cities of refuge in the law, right? Because he didn't say don't kill the guy that just killed your brother or whatever. He said here's a place you can run to so it can be handled in process and arbitrated.
I think here's the clean distinction, because there is a Venn diagram where the vengeance and the vigilantism overlap, but there's also an area where it doesn't. And in both American Paladin and in Citizen Vigilante, the vigilante is acting as a judge, almost as a neutral judge.
Yes.
Where he is not the victim.
They're following a code.
Right.
So they're following an objective, transcendent standard of justice. And that's what people are like, okay, we can be okay with you doing that. It's like Judge Dredd, right? He follows the law.
Or the shadow.
That's his
the
code.
Shadow knows.
Okay. And when they follow their objective standard, it's all okay. People are willing to take that because they're replacing the justice system that should have been doing it in the first place. As opposed to a lot of Western stories where the sheriff comes in and he has to calm the mob down so that justice can be done, which is a judge coming in and having the trial and an institutionalized process restored.
Another distinction, I think, is the revenge is often very personal. It's like, I want this person to suffer. Whereas the vigilantism, justice, is often as much about institutions, right?
Yeah.
These policemen didn't victimize this young woman, but they stood aside and didn't do anything about it in an abstract sense. And so they're still being killed. This judge didn't convict these rapists, and so he deserves to die, right? So that's very much not a revenge. It would be revenge if it was that girl doing it, which is the kind of story we saw all the time back in the 70s, right? 2 whole turnings ago. But that's not what we're seeing now. We're seeing the hard times making strong men. And it's interesting is that times are even harder. And I'm seeing this with Larry Correia's books. The world of American Paladin is darker and scarier than any of Larry Correia's other books. Partly, I think, because it's less magical. But there's just this like, man, this is a dark world. But there's this like beacon of light. Like the Paladin who's just like violently,
right, which is how I write Paladins and stuff. You
Yeah.
write a dark setting so that the light can shine brighter. I was just on X. I was following a story where this pastor in Louisiana, somebody threatened his wife and children, so he beat the snot out of the guy, and then he said he confessed to his family, to his church. He confessed to his congregation. I obeyed the Lord because I laid hands on the sick. It was just a great line. But somebody in the comments said, what did they say exactly? It was like death to Trump, his government, the people that made this happen, and the indifferent. Okay, and this is coming from the other side, but it was that last part that really stood out to me. Death to the indifferent. And that's where a lot of this dark vigilantism comes in, because it's like, well, the cops didn't care about my kids. I'm going to kill them too. They should have protected her. They didn't. They failed. I'm going to kill them too. And this is where we're getting a lot of the revenge porn, which is this kind of fantasy that they're creating. It's not a justice pursuit. And scripture is pretty clear. God says, vengeance is mine. It doesn't say vengeance is wrong. He says, vengeance is mine. And if you want vengeance done correctly, you need someone who can handle all the factors that are going to go into it. I have a whole story about this. I don't know if I have time to tell it here, but it's something that I experienced. I could have taken vengeance. I didn't. I prayed, and God gave me vengeance instead.
It's also how you avoid cycles of vengeance. So in the Middle East, you've got these cycles of vengeance where nobody even knows.
In the Appalachians, you have cycles of vengeance.
You do. And it's why we built Western civilization, and justice, and neutral third-party justice is a core element of Western civilization. Because if a jury of your peers convicts you and the judge proceeds over the hearing and then you're executed, you don't have a claim of vengeance on the victim's family, and there's no cycle of vengeance, right? Because the community as a whole has acted. You had something similar in biblical times where the guilty were executed by stoning, right? There's no one person who's responsible for executing this person. Everybody did it, so that there's no cycle of vengeance. And if you have a cycle of vengeance, it is very harmful for society. And it's why these vigilantes, being third party, I think narratively avoids that a little bit, because it's the Shadow, which is another fictional character from the radio dramas. I used to listen to the Shadow radio dramas as a kid.
That Shadow
over the static. There was a station, one city, I think it was Houston or San Antonio, some really far away station. It was an AM station. I only get it at midnight. It's like the Shadow. It was through the static. Very creepy, very 1950s. This is good time. But the Shadow's doing that same sort of thing, right? It's like hiding in the darkness, bringing justice for the victims.
Curticus is saying something interesting. I don't see how a Christian writer can justify vigilante working outside the law. If you're trying to work the Christian angle, this isn't how you frame it. Okay, I'm co-writing a series with my sister-in-law. Actually, hopefully she finishes something someday. Where I'm writing the paladin part, where he is the hardcore purity in a dark land where literally darkness crawls across the ground and creates monsters formed from the sins inside men's hearts. But he's so pure and so full of light that he is a thorn that walks through that land. He's a thorn of light, and the darkness can't stand him. And so he brings the light, he brings justice, and he brings law to wherever he walks because of what he represents and what he has chosen to commit himself to. It's not a vengeance story. He just hates evil. I always fire shots at my sister-in-law. She's used to it.
So somebody has a question about machine gun preacher. How does it work? Here's how I would do it if I were doing it.
Do y'all know David at all?
Yeah. We have such this weak, passive, being a victim is holy somehow, view
No.
of religion. I saw a photo of a Catholic priest who had a submachine gun over his back as he was holding up the host, doing mass for his church in Nigeria. A lot of people don't know what's happening in Nigeria. The American press is blacking out what's going on, but the Muslims have been massacring Christians all over Nigeria and selling them into slavery. In fact, I just saw some footage of a whole line of black African slaves who'd been captured by Muslims. And the people are like, where's the outcry? Right? It's like, well, they're Christians being sold into slavery to Muslims, and so nobody cares. I care. That's why I'm mentioning it here. But there's this concept of a shepherd has to protect his flock. And if you're so passive and so feminine and so weak that you're not willing to do violence to protect
And
your
you try to
flock,
claim that makes you holy?
you're not
Like,
a
that makes you a
shepherd.
good person? You're not.
You're a sheep. There's a whole flock full of sheep, a whole flock full of people who won't fight back and will just get eaten. But if your job is to be a shepherd, your job is to do violence. And King David expresses this, right? As that pastor as the Catholic priest with the Uzi on his back demonstrates, or the pastor who somebody threatened his wife in his congregation and he laid hands on the sick, right? And I think that there needs to be a correction, and everyone's terrified of the overcorrection, but they're so terrified of the overcorrection that they're fighting the correction in this passive, feminine, it's righteous to be a victim mindset is ignoring the sell your cloak and buy a sword passage of the Bible. He who does not have an AR-15, let him sell his Xbox and buy an AR-15.
So, but there's another thing that people ignore in the story of David, which is when he didn't know what he was supposed to do, he asked God with whom he had a relationship. Okay? I know people are going to respond to this and be like, Christians are bloodthirsty. They think it's just, God wills it, and then you can go do whatever you want because that covers all the sins, and then we'll just be forgiven, right? Well, that's not what happened with David.
That's taking God's name in vain. There's a whole commandment against saying God wills it and then doing something that God doesn't will.
When David's city was burned and his wives were taken captive and all his men's wives were taken captive and all their families were taken captive, David went to the Lord and asked, do I go up? And the Lord said, go up. And you'll see this pattern repeating throughout David's vigilante period. Do I go up? And what he got was the actual direct authority, which is where all legitimacy for government comes from. He got it direct from the source, so he went and did it, so it was not wrong. Now, you have to get it direct from the source. If you just claim you got it direct from the source and you do whatever you want, then yeah, you're a murderer. You are outside the line and you should be hunted and taken out. But if someone is after your family and you ask the Lord, is this a circumstance where I turn the other cheek, or is this a circumstance where I imitate my shepherd and I take care of those who have been placed under my care, then I will do that. And if the Lord says, go up and I'll be right there with you, then go and have a good time.
One of the things that American Paladin and Citizen Vigilante have in common is that there's an acceptance of, yes, this is murder on behalf of the vigilante, particularly in American Paladin, I'll say. I don't actually know how much this is in Citizen Vigilante, but American Paladin has this line several times that the only thing required for evil to flourish is for good men to be afraid of doing hard time. And the Citizen Vigilante in American Paladin, or the American Paladin character, fully accepts that he who lives by the sword dies by the sword, and that he is going to end up doing hard time, right? Like, I'd be shocked if Korea, when he ends the story, ends it with the Paladin retiring on an island somewhere. That's not how the story ends, right? Part of walking this path is accepting the destination, and the destination is not a peaceful death, right? These are the hard men that make good times are not the men that enjoy the good times. They're making the good times for others. they die in the making of the good times.
You know what? Let's go here. People are like, that's not what Jesus did. Yeah, it is. Jesus came down to earth and told the keepers of the law that they were doing it wrong. He came and he healed on the Sabbath because he's like, you misunderstand the Sabbath. He went into the temple and overturned the tables and sent all of the merchants out with violence because they were misusing the law and misusing the temple. He came and reestablished justice wherever he went. Anytime the supposed keepers of the law had anything to say, he called them mean and nasty names. You gonna say something?
Yeah, no, the him with the whip in the temple is totally his vigilante era.
He was a vigilante.
And you can see, because how did they respond? Because everyone is shocked that he's doing this, that he's acting as this vigilante in the heart of the power, right? He's not doing it in some strange synagogue far away. He's right in the middle of the temple in the city that people travel from all over the world to bring their sacrifices to. What question did they ask Jesus after he was whipping people and turning over the tables? They asked him, by whose authority do you do this?
Yep.
You're acting like a vigilante. Who gave you the authority to do this? And Jesus didn't tell them. He gave them a riddle instead.
Yep. Or even when later they tried to trap him in justice when they brought to him the adulterous woman. And they said, by your law that you say you wrote, she's supposed to be killed. So do we kill her? And it says he knelt and he wrote in the dirt. Well, here's the thing. Where was he? He was in the temple. Where should dirt not be? Like, I'm a Marine, okay? Where do you not have dirt is in the command hallway, right? Like, there should not be dirt I can draw in with my finger, right? Does that make sense? So there has been such a lack of even basic maintenance in the temple that Jesus can kneel down and draw on the dirt. And it says that the oldest down to the youngest were stricken in their hearts. I've heard all kinds of theories that Jesus wrote their sins. Or I think he was doodling.
The 10 Commandments.
I think he was doodling in the dirt that should not have been there while they were trying to argue about what was going on here. And so it says they all left. And when Jesus stood back up and they were all gone, he asked her, where are those that accuse you? And she said, I don't know. He said, I don't accuse you either. Get out of here and don't sin anymore. And that was his grace and his justice at the same time.
He told her to stop being a slut. And he also said, I don't condemn you. You did.
He's like, there's lots of problems here that I'm here to fix.
Yeah. And this is one I haven't finished American Paladin yet, but as I'm reading this, because the character American Paladin, the Paladin is trying to fight ultimately these demonic supernatural forces. And he's trying to fight it purely physically. And there is a physical aspect to this, but there's also a supernatural aspect. And it's actually, Korea does a really good job basically demonstrating how ill-equipped this man of violence is for fighting the supernatural side of the fight, right? He doesn't know how to break a curse, right? You can't break a curse with a more powerful rifle. It's like, this one has night vision. Still can't break a curse.
I don't know. I do like that moment in what was it, Buffy the Vampire Slayer, where the vampire comes out and is like, mortal weapons can't hurt. But she's like, it's been 800 years. Here's an RPG.
When in doubt, use fire, which is a line in Monster Hunter International, which is actually a good comparison for Zeitgeist. Monster Hunter Internationals is started off in a grimdark era where the world is broken and there's a nobility to the monster hunters, but there's also kind of a mercenary spirit to the monster hunters, right? They're kind of dancing on this edge of, well, we're doing it to fight monsters. We're also doing it because the puff is really good, which is the money they get for killing vampires. And it's very much kind of a grimdark setting. And it's been getting more noble dark as the series has continued, but the American Paladin is not grimdark in that same sense, where there is no question as to the Paladin's alignment, right? He is good. He is, in fact, he's lawful good. Even though he's breaking the laws of the land, he's breaking it with that appeal to heaven flag flying, right? He's appealing to a greater law. And that's what's justifying these illegal acts that he's doing. It's kind of like having the flashing lights lets you go over the speed limit kind of concept.
And let me bring something else, because I teach martial arts. I teach self-defense and I teach violence, whether it's in a self-defense category or whether it's in an aggressive act first category. Some people are built for violence. Okay, there are personalities that are more tuned to be destroyers. Okay, I have that personality. It doesn't hurt me to hurt people. Like, I don't feel it. All right. The only thing I feel is my hands hurt, or oh, the recoil is hitting my shoulder. Because I find satisfaction in dispensing justice, whether it's, sanctioned by the government or in a self-defense context, I'm taking care of my family, or I'm teaching it so that other people can do the same thing. If you don't have that personality bent, okay, don't worry about it. All right.
Although you can still write a character who has that.
I don't think so, because you don't understand what goes into that kind of mentality, because you tend to stereotype at that point and you tend to get a real shallow interpretation. And a lot of people don't understand why I've studied the way that I have to hurt humans. And it's because I've seen how bad humans get. I know what humans are capable of, and they turn themselves into monsters, and I'm not letting them do it to my daughters. And so I've trained for a long time before I ever had daughters to be able to do things, and my personality is suited for it. Even in the Marine Corps, they were like, sugar's a little dark, because I was willing to go further than anyone else. That if it's not you, I would say don't worry about it, okay? I have not met many of us. And I've met way fewer who do it right. Like, there's a lot of psychopaths, okay? This would be called sociopathy. And it's not healthy. If it's not, I asked a guy this. I had a militant atheist that I served with in the Marine Corps, and he was getting on to me about something in the Bible. I was like, you know what, man? Let me ask you something. What do you think I would be without the Bible? And he stopped and he thought about it, and he was like, wow, okay, that's a point in your favor.
I read a book titled The Sociopath Next Door, and it had me seeing a sociopath behind every tree. And the very next book I read after that was The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. And so reading The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe after reading Sociopath Next Door, I was like, oh, Edmund is clearly a sociopath. The way that he's tormenting his sister is very sociopathic. And it was so important for me to be reminded that, yes, sociopathy is real. Yes, it is common, but also can be redeemed, right? Aslan saves Edmund. And it's not that Edmund stops being a sociopath necessarily. It gets softened, where basically, in my experience, sociopaths that get saved, the Holy Spirit has to operate as their conscience, because they don't really have their own conscience. And so they have to really walk by faith for basic social interactions to a degree that regular humans with a functioning conscience can just rely on their conscience to kind of help them guide that. Whereas that Christian sociopath
what do you mean
is
you just
praying
know
the
what
whole
to do
time.
here?
They're praying the whole time to get through it. And, there's this kind of binary between sheepdogs and wolves. But there's also a sheepdog can turn and start eating the sheep. And and the sheepdogs all came from somewhere, right? Their ancestors were all wolves, right?
White Fang is the story of a wolf that went way worse than anything else and then was redeemed by love.
And another way to tell this story, because I know we have a lot of women in the audience, and you're like, I don't want to write a vigilante story, but I want to take advantage of this zeitgeist moment. Write a Beauty and the Beast story where the beast is a vigilante. because that is a very ancient story. You find Beauty and the Beast stories throughout all of civilizations. It's a civilizational story of women softening the edges off of men. You see it in the Bible. You can argue that Ruth and Boaz is a Beauty and the Beast story. It's a tale as old as time. And the nature of the beast can change. Obviously, we're the most familiar with the Disney version where the beast is, a monstrous looking thing. But the kind of old civilizational version is the woman handing the man a bar of soap. It's like, if you want to be married to me, you need to use this. And, after you get back from the hunt, I appreciate the protein. But before you come in the tent, wash yourself with this soap, right? That's a Beauty and the Beast story. That version's not very interesting, right? You have to kind of expand it a little bit and make it a little more cinematic, but it resonates because there were beastly elements in my life as a bachelor that have been improved now that I'm married.
Now you have extra pillows on the bed for no daggone reason.
And the bed smells nicer. The house is cleaner, right? There is a civilizing force that women have on men. And this is another angle to this kind of story that you can explore. And one that American Paladin might explore as I get into this, because I haven't finished it yet, so I can't spoil how it ends. But he may add a Beauty and the Beast element to the series. There's potential for that for Larry to explore.
There's a cinematic from League of Legends that I love on YouTube. It's called Still Here. And it tells 3 different stories, but it starts with Tryndamere laying on the ground, and he's in the snow. His sword is next to him, and he's surrounded by the enemy. And then it goes through 2 more stories throughout the song, and then it gets back to him, and he's hunted by death. The woods goes dark, and Kindred, which is the spirit of death in this story, is hunting him with her bow, and at the same time, her wolf is attacking him. And he is he's smashing arrows out of the air. He's bashing this wolf to the side. He's trying to stay alive because Tryndamere's ultimate is he can't die for 6 seconds in the game. So she's like desperately trying to take him, and he won't let her. And then she raises her bow to shoot him again, and then 2 arrows go past her head. And you see the delusion fade because the 2 arrows hit the guys behind him that are coming in for him. And it's his wife, Ash, who's running out of the forest. And as she comes up to him, the demon light in his eyes fades as he sees her. And when she runs up to him, you can see it in his face. I did it again. But in her face is forgiveness because she's like, you had to live. It's a fascinating video. I use it a lot for PTSD because you have guys who are desperately fighting off death, but they're being saved by someone who just loves them.
There's also something very alluring for women having, conquered a man who's very dangerous, right? That this man is lethal to everyone else, but he has a soft spot in his heart for me. But there's a real appeal to that. That's kind of deep in the female psyche, which is part of what makes that Beauty and the Beast story work so well. Even Pride and Prejudice has a Beauty and
that's a Beauty and the Beast story. Yeah,
flavor to it. It's not the only formula or kind of archetypical romance. There are other ways of structuring it. And I have a whole episode on this.
And of course, it gets dangerous where women fall for bad boys they shouldn't fall with, right?
Right.
Like that's a wisdom thing. But sometimes God calls you to live in a dangerous time with a dangerous man who needs you.
Yeah, it's the wife of the king who has to do brutal things and fight wars and enact justice. And but she can soften it and be like, maybe we don't have to execute all of them, right? Because there is a room for mercy, right? That interplay between justice and mercy opens up for a lot of interesting fiction. But I think it's okay to write about morally bad characters. This is one more thing. So people are really bothered by this, I can tell, especially the spiritual angle of this. And part of it is a denominational thing. If your denomination goes back to the Quakers, so in a lot of Baptist sects go back to the Anabaptists, there's a real deep aversion to violence that's like core in your identity.
Mine goes back to Anabaptist.
And it didn't work on you, obviously.
Doesn't work.
But it's okay to write about wicked people doing wicked things. And that can be a righteous story if you do it in a moral way, which is where you show them suffering the consequences of their decisions. And that's why I think the American Paladin story, when the series is over, he has to die, right? He has to die by the sword, right? He has to kind of drink the full measure of the cup that he has poured for himself. And and in that way, it's also its own justice, right? It's like you chose to walk this path. This path has a particular destination, and we have lost the ability, particularly in Christian fiction, to write a tragedy. Christians don't write tragedies. They don't write tragic tales. There's tragic tales in the Bible, and there is a particular moral power to tragic stories, and they can still be satisfying. And the most appealing, the best Marvel movie, in my opinion, is Endgame. So not Endgame.
Infinity War.
No, it's the first of the Avengers.
Infinity War.
Yeah, Infinity War. And Infinity War is the best because it has some of the best scenes, but its ending is so good because it is a tragedy. And
they lose.
Yeah. In making it a tragic story.
Spoiler alert.
Where your favorite characters get turned to dust. It's very sad. And people left the movie.
Mr. Stark, I don't feel so good.
Yeah. Because they'd never experienced that. Like American audiences, in many cases,
it was quiet.
Never experienced a tragedy. Yeah. People left kind of.
It was
shocked.
Quiet. Yeah.
And that is a powerful emotional experience. And powerful emotional experiences are what cause readers to love books. And so don't discount tragic tales, and you can create very moral stories. I have a whole episode on morality and how you can use it as a tool in your storytelling. And it's something a lot of people don't fully understand. It's something the left is really missing out on because they don't allow characters to sin in their stories right now. And by sin, I mean breaking their own moral code, right? Even the villains are following the leftist moral code, and it lacks any sort of contrast. And it's why the leftist crafted stories are so boring, is because, and there's a term for it. I just heard it's a socialistic realism, I think. An author who I don't want to out as a conservative. So there are conservative authors you know not of. Very famous. I was in a private conversation with, and gosh, I wish I remember the exact term. But once it's where, anyway, I may do a whole Zeitgeist segment on it in the future. But it's why the left is really failing at storytelling right now. Is that this new trend, and it's very new, going back just 5 to 10 years. Leads to really boring and very predictable stories. The first time you saw it was cool and different, but every story becomes a copy of every other story, and you kind of expect it beat for beat. And it's ultimately a morality failing system. And if you want to see it done well, the Narnia books have characters who are very morally flawed. The children sin, and they do really terrible things, and they experience consequences for those sins.
Susan
up to and including Aslan tearing Aravis's skin, right?
Eustace.
No, Aravis.
Oh, yeah, you're right. Yeah.
He jumps on her as a lion and tears her back open with his claws. And I'm not going to tell you why. You got to read the book.
That's the horse and his boy, everyone.
It's a horse and his boy. It's a very powerful moment, and it's totally earned. And it's shocking to a modern audience. And people keep trying to recreate Lewis. Every Christian fantasy author is trying to recreate Lewis, but none of them are willing to do that. But if you can't go there, you can't be Lewis. You can't have that level of moral clarity and that level of violence. You can't be Lewis.
I do have something to add here, because people are saying, wouldn't that go against the current zeitgeist, or the impact of a great tragedy still be enjoyable for the current reader? I would say if you're going to have a story that is wholly a tragedy, I don't think it'll do very well. People do need more hope and more to look for right now. I would say, though, you can make tragedy a part of your story. Like I said, Susan's story in Narnia ends in tragedy. The last battle is a tragedy, and that's why it's people's least favorite.
The way Marvel got around it is Infinity War technically wasn't a tragedy because they made Thanos the protagonist.
But also because
Thanos
Endgame
won.
was coming. They undid it. So then the
Spoilers.
tragedy was okay.
Yeah.
You know? So that's where they got away with it.
You have more than one character. And so where Citizen or where American Paladin needs to end at the end of this series is while the Paladin needs to die, the princess needs to live. Right?
Sure.
The knight who's fighting to protect the princess, right? The knight, St. George needs to die ultimately, but the princess needs to be saved. So it's not a true tragedy in the sense that everybody dies and everyone is sad. That's not what I'm talking about, because I don't think we're there. But tragic elements as a tool in the toolbox. And this is where I think Christian fiction is really weak because it's trying to be Hallmark. Hallmark is very anti-Christian. The Hallmark story and its core conceit is very anti-Christian, and in ways that people don't really appreciate. And because it has a really broken moral system, because the villains aren't really villainous, the evil isn't really evil, and the redemption isn't very redeeming. Which means no one really goes through a moral arc. No one really changes. There's room for that story, but it's not you have to be really careful with that kind of story because it can lead to a very flawed and broken worldview. Writing is complicated. You have a lot of characters. You have a lot of moving pieces here. And if you get it wrong, you can be distorting the worldviews and the morality of your readers. There is a very real possibility that this rise of vigilante fiction will lead to a rise of these disillusioned young men, these Gen Z young men, which is like the civilizational question of how do you solve a problem like millions of angry young men. China's having to face this, and America's having to face this. Europe's having to face this. We may see a rise in vigilantism, and not particularly discriminating vigilantism, where it just becomes revenge killings and it just becomes factional violence and cycles of vengeance. And if you're not going to write that virtuous vigilante story, the one that kind of has that redeeming element, that core truth, other people are going to scratch that itch, and they may do it with a less moral code in a very polluted way. And this is where, as an author, you can step in and be like, okay, I'm going to show where this path leads. I'm going to use tragic elements as a warning. And I'm going to have a core moral system that's good, even though I have a protagonist who's doing bad things for good reasons. And I'm going to explore that in a true and good and beautiful way. There's a lot of power there, and there are going to be people who are going to make a lot of money not doing that. And I'll say this is one difference between American Paladin and Citizen Vigilante, is that there is an extended brothel scene that's quite explicit in Citizen Vigilante. Like the Citizen Vigilante citizen is not nearly as wholesome of a character as the American Paladin. And we have a choice what kind of stories we're going to create. And I hope we're creating stuff more on the American Paladin side, or even more righteous, because American Paladin isn't, he's not a preacher. He's not fighting the demons, right? He's not a Christian. The character is not a Christian character. I think there's an even more Paladin version. In fact, in that way, he's kind of broken as a Paladin, because the Paladin class is supposed to be like divinely directed. And so he's directed by kind of divine justice, but not by God himself, capital D, divinity. I think there's room for that story. I think some of y'all should write it, and write it quickly.
And I hope Larry appreciates this extended commercial we've given Larry's book.
I tweeted at him and let him know we're doing this segment. So he may be lurking in the comments. You never know.
I haven't seen him. But the point of all this is have nuance and have understanding in the stories that you're writing. Understand what people want, also what they need. You can incorporate tragedy without losing hope. You just find what people need and give it to them. And don't have fear. if anything stops you from doing something, it's either the Holy Spirit. This happens to me a lot. The Holy Spirit saying, like, no, John, don't kill that person who stopped completely for a right-hand turn. Okay, I get that a lot. But if it's stopping you because you're afraid or you're worried about what might happen, then somebody might actually need that story. Like, for instance, if we felt that way, we wouldn't have done this segment. Because people are absolutely going to come for us in the comments. Oh no, YouTube comments. Oh no, keyboard warriors.
We get some very mean comments. We love the live studio audience. Y'all say generally very nice things.
Yeah,
when you disagree with us, you do it in an agreeable way, and you sometimes are.
I've had people ask for my address in the comments of other ones, and I'm like, "Want to do this, keyboard warrior? Let's go!" Like, I'm gonna introduce you to a level of giggling you didn't know existed.
Anyway. This every time Jonathan's like, oh, we have a good amount of stories. This, we thought this would be a good length episode. We went really long. We've gone very long. Hopefully this was helpful. Hopefully this gives you kind of a sense of the zeitgeist. This is just one of the many things happening in the zeitgeist right now. It doesn't mean you all need to write vigilante stories. Next week, we're going to have a different zeitgeist angle. Every week, it's a different zeitgeist angle, different things to consider. Thank you, Dora, for the super chat, Italian Beast and Aussie Beauty.
That sounds cool. I might check that out.
Here's the thing with Beauty and the Beast stories, Dora. It is a really good default recipe. It's kind of like even when you have bad pizza, it's still pizza, and pizza is still good. Now, I realize in Australia, they'll put some weird toppings on your pizza, and you know what? That can work. But it can still be good, and it may still appeal to an American audience. But do a little bit of research, because some of the Aussie toppings on pizza is not the way.
Thank you, Curticus.
Thank you, Kurt. Yeah, thank you all for your super chats. Thank you for those of you who became patrons, and for supporting the show, and for liking and subscribing. We just passed into 4,000 subscribers this week, which is really exciting. So cool. We appreciate those of y'all who are sharing the show and who are helping spread the word.
Dora, we're sorry.
The Italians don't have weird pizza toppings. Their pizza toppings, the original pizza toppings. I had a pizza in Germany that had corn on it. And as somebody who's from a part of the world that grows corn, I was like, why would you do that to a pizza that did nothing wrong to you? What did that pizza ever do to you? This is not justice. This is not eye for an eye. That pizza did not deserve that corn.
Dina, I also play Paladin class, so just so you know. I also appreciate the holy characters when I get to play them.
Yeah.
So,
all right. Come back next week, 4:00 Fridays. If I'm not here, I have lined up an Army officer. Jonathan is a Marine enlisted man, and that is going to be its own Zeitgeist segment. It's going to be fun. I might be here next week. I might not. It's all depends on when the baby decides to come. But I'll be around. Please forgive me if I'm slow to get back to you on email stuff. I will say, go to authormedia.social if you need tech support. Other patrons can help you out while I'm trying to catch up in the midst of this family emergency. And in the meantime, live long.
As a final wrap up,
okay,
make sure you become a Patreon on Thomas's Patreon. Check out my Patreon and the story that's going on there, and come back next week and get everything that we're going to get. The war between the Army and the Marines.
Live long and prosper.